Alan, thank you again for joining us. Over to you. What is deliberative democracy and why should we be interested in it?
Well, I think that's a very great question. I think I'll start by talking about the principle underlying deliberative democracy, and then I'll go on to saying a little bit about how it works in practice. So on the next slide, we have what deliberative democracy is in principle. So I think the underlying idea is that it's that democratic decision making should be informed and it should be inclusive. So despite the fact that we've got all this jargon around deliberative democracy, I think it's quite a basic, simple idea. And what that means is, firstly, participants who are taking part in the process of decision making, they should be informed about various things. So they should be informed about what are the options that they might be able to choose among. I mean, I guess before I say that, actually, they should know what question they're being asked. Yeah, they should know what matter they're being asked to talk about. But then they should know about what the options are that they could choose among. They should know about the range of different perspectives that exist on those options. So I come at these things mainly, as you've said, from a political point of view. So I might be interested, for example, in the Brexit issue, just to take something that's very current. So what are the range of different perspectives that people have on Brexit? What different criteria do people use in order to evaluate Brexit? So the economy, the democracy, sovereignty, all these kinds of things. And then people should also be informed about the facts that are relevant for choosing among the options and evaluating those options in relation to the criteria that are available. So people need to be informed. It's also really important that the people who are taking part, clearly they should contribute, they should feel able to take part, but also it's important that they listen and that they're open-minded, so that their views that they come to are shaped by the information, the facts, the perspectives that they've heard, and so on. Clearly, if people are informed, but they don't allow that information to shape their conclusions, and they just go with their prior gut instincts, their prejudices that they had coming into the room, then you don't have informed decision making. And then finally, the inclusive bit is the importance of ensuring that everyone should have an equal chance to participate, which means everyone should have an equal chance to be in the room, taking part in the discussions, and everyone who's in the room should have an equal chance within those discussions to ensure that their voice is heard, and their perspective can be considered by the other people in the room. So that's the basic principle. Then on the next slide, we move on to how that works out in practice. So next slide, yes, sorry, this slide. So we tend to do deliberative democracy, I'm afraid this is going to be a horrible bit of jargon, through things that we call deliberative mini-publics. And that means things like citizens' juries, citizens' assemblies, citizen panels, all these kinds of things. So the mini-public bit there is the idea that normally when you have a deliberative democracy event, you don't have everyone who could be involved, because that would normally just be too many people. Rather, you have a group of people whose composition is like the population as a whole that you're interested in. And that might be the population of the whole of the UK, it might be the population, just the people who belong to a particular organization. So what the population is going to vary a great deal. So you achieve that normally by having random selection of participants from that relevant population. It's better generally to have, I mean, not always, but generally it's better to have random selection rather than having self-selection of people, because the people who will self-select are not necessarily representative of the population as a whole. Some people are just very unlikely to self-select. I've also got another bit of horrible jargon on there, I'm afraid, that's stratification. So that's the idea that you make sure that you have the right proportions of men and women, the right proportions of people from different class backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, and so on, to ensure that genuinely you have a group of people who reflect the composition of the population. And just what kinds of factors you stratify on depends on the nature of the group that you're choosing people from and what matters for the deliberative exercise that you're engaged in. Then it's really important, in order that this is going to be deliberative and people can really deliberate and discuss and think through issues carefully, it's really important that the discussion is facilitated. So normally you have groups of quite small groups of people, around 7 or 8 groups of people, sitting around a table with a trained facilitator, a trained moderator who keeps the conversation on track and makes sure everyone feels able to participate and leads the discussion towards conclusions. In order to be informed, you need to have high quality and balanced information. And that might be information from experts who've done research in the area. It might be information from people who've got lived experience in the particular area. Also really important actually is just information that members of the group share with each other. Even if they don't have kind of expertise themselves, they have their own experiences, and those are really, really important for any deliberative exercise. And then finally, typically you get to decision making at the end of the process by voting. You don't need to do voting. You could try to get some kind of consensus-based decision making, but normally we have voting. So just to see how that works out in practice, I've got some pictures. So on the next slide, we can see one citizens' assembly that I ran on Brexit a couple of years ago. So you can see the members of the assembly sitting around groups with tables, and the lead facilitator is at the front of the room there explaining what's happening. Then on the next slide, we see some of the groups a bit more close up with the facilitators in green t-shirts. Looks like they're having a kind of getting to know you session at the start of the process there. Then on the next slide, things are getting a bit more intense. So the members have been thinking about things, writing them down, and now they're sharing their ideas with each other and discussing those ideas. Then on the next slide, I said that often you have experts coming in and talking. So often they'll start off by giving a presentation. But then typically the process that we follow is that the members of the assembly think about what they have heard, and then they get the chance to really quiz the experts, and the experts sit with them so that they can have really deep conversations about the subject matter. And then final picture on the next slide, people voting at the end of the process and coming to some decisions. So final slide, very, very quickly. I thought it would be useful for me also just to highlight a few of the key design points, the things that need to be borne in mind, the things that sometimes go wrong when you're designing a deliberative democracy event. So perhaps most fundamentally, you need to have a clear and well-defined question. So people need to know what it is that they're being asked. The facilitators need to be able to direct the conversation clearly towards an outcome. And obviously you don't want something with a really obvious answer where there's no point in having deep discussion. The context is also really, really crucial. So at least in the kinds of fields that I work in, you want to make sure that the ultimate decision makers are open to listening listening to the conclusions of the assembly. Otherwise, it's difficult for people to see what the point is of engaging. And there also needs to be time for the deliberative mini-public, sorry, horrible acronym, to do its work. If you need to have a decision in 2 weeks' time, holding a deliberative mini-public is unlikely to help. Then thirdly, the time that you give to the deliberative mini-public, the citizens' jury, citizens' assembly, has to fit the task. If it's got a complex task, complex question, then you need more time. So you might need multiple weekends when people come back and discuss among themselves in depth. Simple task, maybe just a day is enough, or a couple of days will be enough. You need to treat the members of the group well, particularly if you're asking them to come back over a period of time. They need to feel that their participation is valued. And also, generally, it's important to pay people to take part, because otherwise you don't get a representative sample of the wider group. Of course, that depends on the nature of the population that you're sampling from. And then finally, just to reiterate the importance of really high quality facilitation and good quality information as key inputs to the process.